What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to a fantasy booking edition of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. This is something that I tend to do pretty much every year around this time frame, and I figured why not go ahead and do it again. I'm going to be fantasy booking WrestleMania 42. If you don't know who I am, I'm Tony Mango. And of course, before we get started, I want to mention that there are many different things that you guys can do to help us out on this podcast and on this YouTube channel and everything. One of them being to leave your comments below and tell me what you would do for WrestleMania 42. We're a year in advance from when that's going to take place, so there's plenty of time for you to toss out your opinions, your ideas, your predictions, anything along those lines. And then, of course, we can look back on this a little bit later on and we can see how right or how wrong or how many things changed in the meantime. That's kind of the whole game plan here. And I'm always curious what you have to say too, so drop your comments below. Or if you want to take part in our Discord server, that is a great way for you to chat it up in another spot if you're not on YouTube. Of course, if you're on Facebook or Twitter or something like that, go ahead and do the same thing over there. If you are on YouTube, though, make sure that you also hit the like button. Make sure that you are subscribed, ring that notification bell, hit that share button, pass us around. If you want to help us out on the monetary side of things, the thanks button is there and the join button is there. Give you access to the same stuff as the Patreon, like the Darkcast tier, the Pick Your Poison tier, and whatever we end up calling the new Discord tier, where you can join in on the live chats and things like that. Haven't quite figured that out yet. We'll figure that out in the future. But that stuff is all on YouTube. It's all greatly appreciated. Redbubble and TeePublic is where you can pick up merchandise as well. So keep all that stuff in mind. And it's time for us to kind of get into the preliminary stuff when it comes to this. So I didn't want to give myself the same set of rules that I have every once in a while where I'm like, all right, I'm going to give myself like 1 hour to figure out a card, or that I have to be completely beholden to the roster exactly how it is right now. So I am going to play around with a little bit of some stuff where I made a call up from NXT and, things along those lines. I'm going to take a little bit of liberties, but try to keep it at least somewhat reasonable. So I don't even know where to start. I didn't book the card in order of, this match goes first, that match goes second on night 1, night 2, that kind of a thing. But I did try to limit myself to, I have 17 matches on here. Now that is more that they've been doing. They've been having 14, but I am adding 3 more because I wanted to add more than 3 more, but I'm going to go under the assumption that 2 of these matches could potentially not take place on WrestleMania itself, but I would be adamant and tell them if we have 3 hours of a pre-show on night 1 and 3 hours of a pre-show on night 2, we can at least include a match on each one of those. And I would pitch for the return of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. And I would also return the whole favor of the Women's Battle Royal as well. And I would do the thing I've been talking about for a long, long time, the China Memorial Battle Royal. So this is my means of getting lots of people on the card that normally wouldn't be on the card, and to actually get them on the pre-show. It's not the main card, but it is pre-show. It's better to be on a pre-show of WrestleMania than on SmackDown in some ways. And, bring a little bit more focus to doing that kind of a story. We don't need to book the whole thing, but people that I have incorporated into the China Memorial Battle Royal, I'll read them in alphabetical order here. Alba Fire, B-Fab, Candice LeRae, Chelsea Green, Dakota Kai, Ivy Nile, Katana Chance, Caden Carter, Kiana James, Lyra Valkyria, Maxine Dupree, Michin, Natalia, Nikki Cross, Piper Niven, Raquel Rodriguez, Scarlett Bordeaux, Shayna Baszler, Zelina Vega, Zoe Stark. And then if you wanted to include any kind of NXT talent in there, if you wanted to include like a Mariah May, if she's involved or something like that, if she ends up getting signed, keep all that in mind. Maybe throw Julia in there, whatever it might be. But that's already like 20 names or so. I'd probably give the win to Chelsea Green. And I would probably do that on night 1 or night 2, like whatever, if you want to go with a heel or face, whatever you want to do it like that. Now, the other night, of course, has the other one, the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. And I have even more names for that. I decided to keep the Wyatt Six out of it, but I still ended up with 32 names that I couldn't put elsewhere. And very quick speed round. Kira Tozawa, Angel. Oh, wait, no, I actually don't have Angel Garza in there, so that is a mistake. So I have 31 names, I think. Yeah, Kira Tozawa, Apollo Crews, Austin Theory, Braun Strowman, Bronson Reed, Bruce Creed, Chad Gable. Kind of. It sort of depends. Talk about that in a minute. Elton Prince, Eric, Grayson Waller, Humberto Carrillo, Ilya Dragunov, Ivar, JD McDonough, Julius Creed, Karrion Kross, Kit Wilson, LA Knight, Ludwig Kaiser, Omos, if he's still around, Otis Dozovic, I always write Dozovic, Pete Dunne, R-Truth, Rusev, Sheamus, Shinsuke Nakamura, Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, The Miz, Tongaloa, and Tyler Bate. No Wyatt Six in there. I'm assuming, of course, that Kevin Owens is not going to be wrestling on this card because of his injuries, so I'm not incorporating him. Same thing when it comes to Brock Lesnar not being involved. Same thing with John Cena being retired. So this is for the everybody who can't get on the card elsewhere situation. Now, I do have another multi-person match, and this one is something that it's not something I'm particularly fond of in the grand scheme of things, but it's something that I figured might be a thing to kind of dance around. Oh, by the way, before I switch over to that, the potential winners for this would be Karrion Kross, LA Knight, Rusev, Sheamus, and Solo Sikoa. So take your pick when it comes to that. But I have a 12-man tag team match on this card, and that is to kind of highlight AAA a little bit because I think that they're going to be wanting to still do something like that. So I am throwing in the Latin American contingent in a lot of different ways, but also El Grande Americano. That is a placeholder thing. Now, I said maybe Chad Gable in the Andre, maybe not. The main thing would be, I don't know if they're going to continue to have the El Grande Americano by next year's WrestleMania. It seems like that's too long of an idea. And the bigger replacement would be somebody from AAA that was prominent. That's a group of heels. It's Dominik Mysterio, either a AAA guy or El Grande Americano, Santos Escobar, Berto, Angel, and Carlito against Rey Mysterio, El Hijo del Vikingo, never know if I'm pronouncing that right, Andrade, Cruz del Toro, Joaquin Wilde, and Dragon Lee. Dominik Mysterio and Rey Mysterio, if you don't want to do something like this with them, I still feel like they should be somewhat involved with each other in a mask versus hair mask match or something like that. And then most of these other guys, you could just throw them in the Andre. So I'm kind of putting that in there as a placeholder thing that I'm not particularly proud of. But then again, we're booking a year in advance. We don't know what the hell's going to be fun, what's going to be working really well, what's not going to be working at all, who's going to be injured, any of that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to get as many people on the card as I possibly can. Let's see what else we have. We have I guess I could go in pretty much any order here. So I'm going to toss out the let's go United States Championship match. Gunther against AJ Styles. And this is one of those matches that I just feel it would be really good. And Gunther, he should have a title. He is better when he's got a championship. If he's not going to be in the world title picture, then United States title, he can cross that off his list. Could be the Intercontinental. You can really just switch them. It doesn't really matter, but I don't know. I kind of like the idea about him holding the United States title a little bit better just because it's that kind of xenophobic thing. And AJ Styles, he just works really well with Gunther. So I would probably go Gunther beating AJ Styles here, depending on the scenarios. And you take a pick when it comes to some of that stuff. I'm a little less sold on the Intercontinental title match that I have, but I have a fatal four-way between Aleister Black, Damian Priest, Finn Balor, and Jacob Fatu. I just kind of feel like all four of these guys should be in contention for one of those mid-card titles or in an upper mid-card spot by the time we get around to WrestleMania, but not necessarily in a higher spot. And you could put them in the Andre, sure. You could do some kind of a multi-man tag thing or something, I don't know, but I feel like these guys would all vibe together. I don't know. Maybe it's the whole, like, they're all angry, they're all dark, whatever. Like, it's not like they're gonna have like necessarily the Demon Valor dark gimmick like that and all, but I think that we could do something fun here, and I think that they could all interact with other people and then come back around to each other around this time frame. So, depending on who is champion at the time heading in and all that, it could go any way, really. And yeah, I'm putting Intercontinental on here because I don't think that Jacob Fatu is going to be holding the United States title for an entire year. I think he might end up on the opposite brand at some point. I don't know. We'll see about that. But if it's the United States title, then just go along with that. It's really nothing that much different. Tag titles are all over the place. So I'm just going to toss out the bunch of different tag teams that I think are in the mix here. So there's basically 8 tag teams that I would try to revolve around, depending on who's on what roster, depending on who's champions, who's busy doing what, whatever. DIY, Fraxium, the Lucha Bros, Motor City Machine Guns, New Day, Street Profits, Trick Melo Gang, and the Usos. I do think Trick Williams should be called up to the main roster. I do think he should be reteamed with Carmelo Hayes, and that should happen towards like the middle part of the year or something, maybe. I don't know if it's necessarily time quite yet for Trick to be moved up. And I'm kind of actually liking Melo Miz. So I think that you should maybe switch it up a little bit like that. But I would potentially have them be baby faces. And I think you could do 2 different Fatal 4-Way matches on here, or you could just tell some people like, sorry guys, sorry Fraxium or whatever, like you just don't make the card necessarily, and we get like a 2-on-2 or I guess 4-on-4. I don't know, but I do think that by this point Jey Uso will have lost a lot of his luster, and that I don't know if I'm going to really be invested in him taking up one of the mid-card title spots or like a dedicated feud. So I think teaming him back up with Jimmy is a means to get a big name in this match. It's more so like, well, you're a former world champion, you're going to upgrade this just the same as like Kofi can. And then, the tag team title match means even more. And, we got a lot of big names involved in this. So pick 2 matches out of this, even if it's 4 teams in both matches and all. And then, play around with that. The women's tag title, I'm kind of in the same boat. I have 4 tag teams here. And one of them is actually the idea that they were pitching originally for this year, which is Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair. I've got Damage Control, I've got Asuka and Kairi Sane, rather than Io and Asuka like they had planned. I also have Naomi and Nia Jax. I don't know, before they even interacted on SmackDown, I was kind of getting a feeling that maybe they would end up being a tag team. And I kind of like the idea. Maybe a little bit of bloodline stuff going on there. I don't know. But I also have Roxanne Perez down, and I have her down with either Cora Jade or Bayley, or potentially maybe both. Maybe it's like a trio. Like Bayley ends up turning heel and she ends up being kind of the leader of a faction with Perez and Jade. Something along those lines. Roxanne involved with either of those 2. Maybe it's with Cora and Bayley's on the outside. I don't know. But Fatal 4-Way match for the women's tag titles. I don't know who's going on as champion. I don't know who's retaining. More than likely it's Becky and Charlotte going in as champions. Maybe Damage Control wins. I don't know. Let's switch over to let's go mid-card women's. Women's United States title match. Io Sky against Tiffany Stratton. I think that both of them are going to not be in the world title situation next year, but that they should still be prominent. So putting them in mid-card title kind of solves some of that problem. And I think that these 2 would have a good match. There's really not all that much more to it than that. I probably realistically would end up going with Io as a babyface and Tiffany is back to being a heel. Probably we go with Io winning. It kind of all depends and stuff, but just in theory, I think I would like to go in that direction. Now, the women's IC title match, I have down Alexa Bliss on the babyface side of things, and I have Liv Morgan on the heel side, and This match, of course, is not going to be the 5-star classic barn burner type of match, but I do think that this is exactly the type of match that a lot of people would get into just from like star power perspective. And it's like the two Harley Quinns against each other, and maybe you can do some kind of a gimmick along with it. Maybe it could be like a no DQ match or something that they can kind of like speak to that side of things. You don't have to. And I don't know, I got a feeling that people would just dig this. Like it would just be one of those like, oh, it's the vibes kind of a thing or something. And you do have to book to things that aren't just pure, you know, what's bell to bell for a lot of people. Because, you know, some people watch things and like AEW and whatever, and they're very much like, I want the best wrestlers against each other. And other people are like, I just want vibes. And if you put them, you know, Rock and Hogan staring at each other, they're like, this is the best match ever. It doesn't matter if they throw a single punch. And I think that Bliss and Morgan can really tap into that side of things. Probably would go with Bliss leaving with the championship, because I think either she, you know, goes in, retains, or she wins the title or something. I do think both of them should hold a mid-card title at some point to just kind of like add to their resume. So keep that in mind. On the non-title situation for certain things, I'm going to toss out a match that I thought we would potentially get this year. CM Punk versus Logan Paul. A lot of people will probably be like, oh my God, I don't want to see that because I think that Punk should be doing something more. He should be fighting for the WWE title or something like that. I thought about having Punk against Cody Rhodes. I thought about having Punk against Seth Rollins. Thought about some alternatives for Logan Paul, which I kind of went between Randy Orton, even Braun Breaker. But I was like, you know, the heel versus heel thing would make sense. I thought maybe Logan Paul versus Gunther. I thought maybe Logan Paul versus, and that was another heel thing. Thought maybe Logan Paul against like Aleister Black or Finn Balor or Damian Priest in a different way, or maybe even Jacob Fatu. Maybe by then he's turned babyface or something. I don't know. But I just think that on paper, douchebag Logan Paul being schooled by CM Punk is something that would be a big money match. A lot of people would be interested in it. It means to give Punk a really important match that isn't the main event, so that you don't have to build around that. And I do have other people that I wanted to build around instead. So I kind of was leaning towards that. And Punk wins, of course. He hits the go to sleep on Logan Paul, makes him tap out, whatever it might be. I don't know. I just got a feeling that that would be pretty good. So the women's championship side of things, let me move my stuff around here a little bit. I got Bianca Belair versus Jade Cargill for the women's championship over on SmackDown right now. Maybe it goes over to Raw. I don't know, whatever the draft ends up doing. I just think this is one of those things that I don't want to see Jade against Charlotte for the, one of the main events of WrestleMania. I think that they should do that at another time of the year. And I think that nobody shines brighter than Bianca. So Bianca and Jade, it'll take a while to come back around to that. And I think that that's the story that people would really, really want to see. Hopefully by then, Jade's proven herself a little bit more and she can be trustworthy in that kind of spot. And she could be either the champion that Bianca beats, or Bianca could be the champion that Jade beats. But I do think that that should end in a title change. And it should be one of those matches that it's like celebrated for being like, I don't know if celebrate's the right word, but like that they came back around and they told the story of their friendship and then they finally were like feuding. I think that that could be something that people could really sink their teeth into. Maybe not the best transition to go from there to this, but Rhea Ripley versus Stephanie Vaquer for the other championship. I'm assuming the women's world championship. Again, the draft could switch people around and that doesn't really matter. It's whatever the opposite title is. Again, I think that not only would this be a hell of a match, I think that their aesthetics match. I think that people would go crazy over watching these two against each other. I think that Rhea could be a heel by then and Stephanie could be the baby face. I think that they could both go in as baby faces and that might end up being intriguing too. So people are just like cheering for both of them. I think at this point, Stephanie Vaquer has proven herself to be even more of an asset than Julia, who had been like brought on with more fanfare and everything. And I don't think that Julia is going to be brought up to the main roster before Stephanie, nor do I think that Jordynne Grace will be. Now, if, of course, they decided that they wanted to move up Jordynne Grace instead and keep Stephanie in NXT, at this point, I don't know why, because she's already held both of the championships that she would own, so Stephanie really has nothing else to do once she drops that championship. But then you could easily swap Stephanie with Jordynne Grace against Rhea Ripley. And then at that point, you could even swap out, Bianca Belair could be against Jordynne Grace, and then maybe you could do the Bianca and Jade story another time, and it could be Jade against Rhea Ripley. But I think that Bianca and Jade makes more sense for WrestleMania. So Rhea Ripley versus Stephanie Vaquer, I think it would be one of the best matches that you could put on, and it would be one of the most vibey things that people would be interested in. And overall, I think that Vaquer and Rhea Ripley really deserve to get that kind of spotlight. I guess I got to go in this order. So wrapping this up, I got the last couple matches here, and we don't know where this whole Dangerous Alliance thing is going to go with Paul Heyman and Bron Breakker and Seth Rollins and stuff, but I'm going to assume that Bron Breakker is not going to be the guy that fights Seth Rollins. I'm going to say that Rollins is fighting in a different capacity and stuff, and that Bron Breakker is not holding either mid-card title either. So I'm going to put him up against Randy Orton. I think that is like the profile match that they can do. Bron Breakker could be against a lot of people. He could be against Cody. He could be against AJ Styles if they wanted to do that. But they could also do those feuds throughout the year. And Orton should have a prominent spot, but I couldn't figure out many people that I would want to put him with. Overall, I figured, you know what? I think Bron Breakker against Randy Orton in kind of that reverse legend killer sort of gimmick could be a good spotlight match for Bron Breakker. So Bron Breakker wins that. Now to explain the World Heavyweight Championship match, I have Seth Rollins against Sami Zayn. I am assuming Seth Rollins beats Jey Uso and wins the World Heavyweight Championship. And then that he moves over to SmackDown either before or after that happens or whatever, and that he probably will hold the World Heavyweight Championship up until WrestleMania. And then at that point, he has a couple different options. You could do Seth against Cody again. You could do Seth against Punk again. You could do a bunch of different things like that. Part of me just wants to see Sami Zayn finally win the world title, and that he could be this bastion of hope where if Seth Rollins is going to be one of these guys that's going to like run the roster and be like a, horrible heel, eventually somebody needs to be that, power positivity guy. And Sami could be a very good opponent for Seth throughout the summer or in the fall. But I would like to see him, win the Royal Rumble or win the Elimination Chamber and then be like, I'm going to beat you, Seth. And finally get there's your big happy moment of WrestleMania. And now, I do have The Rock against Roman Reigns in the other match for the undisputed WWE Championship. I just realized now that I did not mention the other match that I have on here. Actually, did I not make a graphic for that? I might not have made a graphic for one of these. So I might have to do kind of the reverse here because I didn't plan that out, and the editing of this is a little bit strange, and I don't want to completely undo all this whole thing that I've just been recording. So I'll give you the backstory of this, and it's going to tie into it, and I'll put the other graphic in the meantime. I am kind of working under the assumption that this is how the next couple of months is going to play out. I think that we're looking at John Cena is going to be heel, and he's going to be in a situation where he's not going to be a heel champion for this whole time. I think that he is going to lose the championship and then turn babyface, and there aren't too many people that can beat him realistically for whatever this is. If it's just WrestleMania, if it is, if it's maybe it's SummerSlam. You could do something. I mean, WrestleMania wouldn't make any sense. He's not going to WrestleMania. In my mind, John Cena is going to be best if he can turn babyface. Sorry, I'm getting distracted while I'm doing this. If he can turn babyface in a way that he still has some time to be able to do some babyface matches. And I don't think that there's really, like, he's not going to lose to Randy Orton. Let's put it that way. And with only 20 something days that he is going to be wrestling, you can't really rely on too many options being like, all right, well, you can do a dream match between this person. You could do a dream match within that person, that kind of thing. I don't think that there's much of a better option right now with Braun Breaker being a heel and with Gunther being a heel that they could really do anything other than potentially have Cody win the title back. And it's not my favorite setup for anything like that, but it's something, and it's a means to kind of go back a little bit and then move forward. Because I don't think that Cody would be holding the championship then. I think that, I guess long story short, this is the way that I could put it. Cody beats Cena at SummerSlam. Cena sees the error of his ways. The Rock should have a bit of his story to go back with this, because I hate it when The Rock is like, well, I don't need to really do anything and it's okay. Well, you're the guy that starts this story. You should actually continue the story. So in my mind, this is what I do. Now, maybe they have some other plans in mind and it completely is like, all right, The Rock said he wouldn't do WrestleMania 42 anyway. Then we can completely change everything like that. Then I got to figure out something else for Roman and so on and so forth. But the way that I would do this, Cody beats Cena at SummerSlam. Cena has a babyface turn. After SummerSlam, The Rock comes out and is like, Cena, you motherfucker, you didn't live up to your bargain. And I guess nobody can, Solo didn't do it. Roman couldn't do it. And I'm really getting annoyed with the idea that everybody that I attach myself to is not getting the job done. So I'm going to get it done myself. And yes, you have to book a match with Cody Rhodes and The Rock. So you do that at a pay-per-view like Survivor Series maybe, or you do something around that time frame. Maybe you even do it at the Royal Rumble for the next year, but you have to do it at some point. Actually, the Royal Rumble is probably the best time to do it. So Cena's already gone. He retires. So that way you don't have the excuse anymore of like, what would Cena do in the meantime? And, whatever. And who is it that helps him out? It's Drew McIntyre. Because Drew McIntyre has been bitching and complaining. He, of course, keeps talking about how everybody doesn't want to listen to him and all this. And he has a tie to The Rock where you could say, okay, well, they've had a history before and they are like kind of friendly and all. So he goes to the guy that's been hovering around this for a while. Drew costs Cody the WWE title. The Rock beats Cody. That tells the end of that story. And this starts Cody on what eventually will be his heel turn. And it's Drew McIntyre versus Cody Rhodes. I didn't type this out correctly. This should not be a singles match. This should be a last man standing match, because the idea being they will have fought enough times where they could be like, Cody gets so mad at Drew because it's like, okay, well, you cost me the championship and everything like that. So like it's probably why that the Royal Rumble would be the best time to put it on The Rock. And then you don't have to worry about like booking too much in advance. You can just do the next couple months, like the road to WrestleMania could be mostly Cody and Drew McIntyre kind of getting involved. Cody doesn't get an opportunity to get a rematch or anything in the meantime too, because it's already straight to the Royal Rumble and all that. And you get Cody versus Drew, last man standing, WrestleMania, big important match, kind of the same as like the CM Punk and Logan Paul. You could put them on opposite nights, and you could do some tag stuff in the meantime, and like keep people busy like that. So it comes ultimately down to Roman wins either the Elimination Chamber or the Royal Rumble, and we finally get Roman Reigns versus The Rock, undisputed WWE Championship. So The Rock gets what he wants, where he's walking in as the champion. They're main eventing, and Roman wins. We get it out of the way. We do it. It's done. We don't have to worry about it anymore. And then from that point on, Roman is your champion, and you can do whatever you want with him. You can have Bron Breakker beat him. You could have a heel Cody Rhodes beat him if Cody starts turning heel immediately after WrestleMania or something like that. You could put the belt on Gunther through Roman. Like you could do a lot of different things, but The Rock only has to hold the title for a short amount of time, and he still gets his title reign and everything. It wraps up everything with Cena. It starts doing the whole Rock and Drew McIntyre thing. You get Cody involved in there. You got the Cody and Roman alliance in some ways. So you could do like on, I don't know if there's a pay-per-view like a Fastlane or something like that. In the meantime, you could do like The Rock and Drew McIntyre versus Cody and Roman. Well, they probably wouldn't do that because they would be like, The Rock might get injured. Point being, you can play around with something like that. But that's what I have in mind, at least as far as this whole like preliminary thing. Now, the draft could change things up. SmackDown could change things up. Raw could change things up in the meantime. We don't know what's going to happen for Backlash and all, but ultimately, that would be my fantasy booking for WrestleMania 42 right now, as far as 3:55 in the morning on April 28th. And I guess we'll see how different I ended up making this card compared to what we end up getting. Hopefully, they end up something just as good, if not better. And I don't know. Let me know what you think. This is what I got at the very least right now. I'm sure that people could think of a lot of other ideas that they would do if they were in that kind of position and they had the creative license and all. So let me know what your creative ideas are and what you think about my card and all that kind of stuff. Maybe you think it's awesome. Maybe you think it's awful. Whatever it is, leave a comment below. Keep in mind all that's marketplace stuff that I mentioned. Keep in mind the Discord server. And also follow everything on amangotree.com or anthonymango.com. And, like, share, follow, favorite, subscribe to all those things you can find there. Stay tuned for the next thing that's going to be coming your way, which I believe is most likely going to be the Fantasy League draft, where we will be picking our new rosters before Backlash. Maybe we do something else in the meantime. I don't know. We'll see about that. But stay tuned one way or another. And I will see you next time. But for now, this is the end of this episode of the fantasy booking, and check off one more annual thing of the year already. But adios for now, everybody. This has been another Smark Out moment, and I am being counted out.